It's March 4th, 2023. Bill King Show on CIUT 89.5 and a crazy winter weekend. And Jessica, what are you doing?
You know what? I'm preparing for spring, Bill. I know, crazy winter weather, but you know what?
Yeah.
Spring is just around the corner. What, March 21st?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
I'm going off mic. Don't buy in. We make this mistake every year that people go, oh, March. March is just February disguised as January.
I know.
It's the
I'm just
same.
being positive.
Yeah. And then we get to April and we think we're there. And then you go, no, April is still March. And then we get to May when you go, oh, yeah, now we get it.
Yeah. Sometimes May comes with like a bang. All of a sudden it's just hot weather. We're like, what's going on? Our bodies are trying to acclimate. It makes us kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get you.
They say we're going to have a warm spring. Now, I can buy into that, but I'm not going to try to get us there too quick. Now, the both of us, we caught a Rock of Ages the other night. The rock musical about the 80s, and you're 90s, right? You're 90s music, right? 60s.
Yeah.
So this
90s music. Yeah.
The 80s, I don't know where that fits in my life.
You know what? But I have to admit,
okay.
I did rock out to Journey because I was also part of the MTV generation. So lots of Journey, lots of like the glam rock. For some reason that my sister and I really gravitated towards like the bombacity of like 80s arena rock, right?
When you see this musical, you think you're at Studio 54.
It's It's
kind of like a drag show in a way too. So it's got a mix of all that.
It was hypersexual. I'll have to say, I'm just going to say right off the bat, I was not expecting so much sex and sexual innuendo.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
You're a Jersey girl too, right? So this is not.
I'm a Jersey girl.
Okay.
Yeah. The staging, the set, I think we were both really impressed with that.
Yeah, the staging set was great.
And it had some really interesting moments, like they would break the fourth wall and talk directly to the audience. There were some jokes about John Tory peppered throughout. It was an interesting show. Show.
And I'm sure people enjoy it. People are singing along and having the greatest time.
And they dressed up. They came in their 80s best, and they were having a really good time. So that was really cool. That was cool to see.
Now, I did the VIP thing, and you skipped that. You went directly to the performance, right? And I was I was hoping you were coming down because it was just me and two other people, and then a room full of people dressed in costume. Right. I had no costume. I looked like the Lonesome Cowboy or something, right?
Yeah, I missed the VIP. I was just I got there at 7, but I made sure I got my pass and my goodie bag.
Now, have you ever sat next to somebody and they look like somebody you've seen on TV and you want to say, even though you know they're not, you just want to kid them? So the guy sitting next to me in the VIP looked like Blake Shelton, and he had a beard.
Oh, get out.
And I was going to go Blake just to do it for fun, see what his reaction would be. But I held back, because we don't know each other. I didn't know if he'd pop me or what. But,
yeah, he may feel like that's an insult.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe Dee Snider, right?
Dee Snider.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You know who people used to say I resembled? I used to get this for a year. Every woman would tell me this when my hair was cut short and it was straight. They said you resemble Sherry Belafonte.
Sherry Belafonte, you do though.
Oh, I was like, you know what? I like that. I accept that because she is a gorgeous woman, and her father's Harry Belafonte. So, and my last name is Bellamy. So I'm like, Mom, what's going on here?
There's a bloodline there. I see this.
Bloodline.
So we got an amazing show today. I'm leading off today with Caileah Scott-Grimes, and this is all about the Voice Film Unite at ACCA Film Festival, which will be coming March 30th at Burlington Performing Arts Center. She has a great film called Overgrown, and you have Desarae Dee, is it?
Yes, Desarae Dee. She's Toronto's queen of vibes, super talented pianist. Just dropped her latest EP, Self. It's fantastic. And she has a single coming up with her full-length album that everyone's been waiting for. Chilly Timing, that's coming out at the end of the month. So she's definitely someone to support and watch.
Jesse's in, and he's talking about music bios, right? The ones he really likes against what was coming up on, I think it was called Dig or something. They recommended some, and he had some questions about those because he's read several of them. Gloria Martin's on. She's talking about The Consultant with, was it Christopher Waltz?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that. And then we finish up with, this is great. This is Aaron Kazmer, and he's a third grip cameraman. I guess that's this gig, right? And he was on Mayor of Kingstown for 2 seasons. So he gives the background perspective on what it's like to be there 16-hour days and in there with all those crazy inmates. So this is great stuff. So it's the Bill King Show, CIUT 89.5. Caileah Scott-Grimes is a Toronto-based writer and director. From death positivity to struggles with gender identity, Caileah's work brings an intimate lens to transgressive topics that are difficult to talk about. Working in both documentary and film, her films have been featured on CBC Short Docs, Air Canada, and Cinema Politica. Her work is screened at 60-plus international festivals, including Hot Docs, BFI Flair, Real Asian, Inside Out, and Outfest. Coming March 30th at the Burlington Performing Arts Center will be the Voice and Film Unite at the ACA Film Festival presented by Sing, the Toronto International Vocal Arts Festival, at which Caileah's film, Overgrown, which tells the story of Margot, a lonely senior facing eviction, who is desperate to salvage the broken pieces of her life, gets a showing. This is where we begin today on The Bill King Show. Caileah Scott-Grimes, welcome in.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to begin by this. I don't know if you've seen The Fabelmans.
The Fabelmans, I haven't seen it yet. I better get on it.
No, the reason I bring this up, basically a story of Steven Spielberg as a kid. And his fascination with film, the Super 8 camera, and then onto the 16 mil, the whole desire to tell a story. What was your motivation?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, when I was about 5 years old, I remember my dad he had a big old clunky video camera, and he was doing interviews for his work as a professor. And I remember bugging him and being like, I want to be in the movie. Let me help with the movie, even though they weren't films per se. And I was one of those bleeding heart artist type kids. And so I think from an early age, I saw somebody, using a camera, and I felt like, wow, I could do that too. How hard could it be? Of course, at the time you think that way. And I think for me that, I've always had this really burning curiosity about the world. And I love to see, find what's beautiful in things that we ignore or things that we say are ugly or don't pay attention to. That feels really special to me, and I'm really connected to people. So for me, I think that's the core of it, is trying to find, these spaces like in between different cultures and generations and identities, that sort of thing film can do for us.
Now, how did you find yourself in the kind of storytelling to document?
So I didn't go to film school. For anyone listening, you don't have to. I started off in visual art. So I thought I was going to go into painting and illustration. But then I had some really sort of personal stories that I wanted to tell, kind of family stories. And I started documenting those on video, and gradually started thinking, okay, I'd love to expand into the world of fiction, especially because I love, magical realism and fantasy, things more in that direction. And so I went on to do my master's in film at York, and there started exploring fiction, and really just started to find the kind of people I wanted to work with. You're part of that whole, storytelling craft is like gathering a team that have huge imaginations. So I think that is what really helped me take it to the next level with Overgrown.
And before Overgrown, the films you made prior to that, what was the motivation? What were the issues? And how were you able to raise the money to express yourself in such a way?
Ooh, that's a good question. So my first fiction film was called Between Us, and it was released in 2020. Prior to that, I had just done documentary work. But Between Us was my master's thesis film, and it was set in a part of rural Japan that I used to live in about 10 years ago now. And that was really a story about belonging among queer and trans communities. And as a non-binary person, like, I partially wanted to really explore that vein in a cross-cultural context because I hadn't seen that done very much. So that's a sort of a Canadian and Japanese story in a rural environment that part of the motivation for me too was to like bring people together in the making of the film. So for me, it's not only the story that's told on screen, but it's an opportunity to like bring kinds of people who, you know, bring them together who might not otherwise have a chance to meet. So that was a special project to me because, you know, we had seniors from rural areas with like trans folks from Tokyo. And so that was really special to me. And that film had a huge life in the festival circuit. I was very lucky with that film. And after that, I made a film that, you know, has actually little echoes, I think, with Overgrown. It's called Rock in the Coffin. That was on CBC. So we returning to the question of funding. So in the York Master's program, we're lucky enough to be able to apply for grants that you would normally use for research. So I had that kind of grant from SSHRC, and then I also applied to the York Center for Asian Studies. So that was kind of a special circumstance, like if you're in a program. But then I also submitted for an award called the Linda Lee Tracy Award, and that provided some funds for my future work. So I think for any filmmakers out there, it's always a good idea to see if the work that you've already created, you know, if you can find a way to put funding towards the next project.
And these led to some Best Director Jury Award for Image Plus Nation Queer Short Film Fest, Montreal.
Yes, and one in Amsterdam as well. Yeah, I was really privileged to have my work recognized in that way, especially because it was the first fiction film. You never know. It's a bit of a rolling the dice, you know, whether it will turn out well. But yeah, I'm very thankful for that.
I don't know if you pay attention that much to the U.S. like a guy like Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, who uses trans as a wedge issue. And he wants to run nationally at this and is causing a lot of pain and heartache and a lot of danger. If you were dropped into that situation, how would you tell that story from that end of it? Different places in the world have a different way of addressing this.
No, you make a really good point. I mean, I think film is actually a really powerful medium in the sense that it can be very disarming. So I think that's the beauty of it, is when we're dropped into somebody's story and we see parts of their everyday life, they seem less like, you know, these strange people over there that we don't know about. Like there's something that becomes more familiar about them, and we start to find, you know, common ground with them. And so I think we need, you know, both that sort of, you know, activist, very direct stream of addressing, you know, this kind of like discrimination, but also arts that just make us feel, you know, joy and interest in other kinds of people. Like, I think it can really do that. And the sort of softness of that approach, I think, will over time really has the power to change people's opinions.
Coming to Overgrown, this story,
yes.
This will be featured, of course, March 30th at the Burlington Performing Arts Center. These three were funded through a grant to Sing Festival, made it possible to do 3 short films.
That's right.
How did you come to this topic?
So for anyone listening who's not familiar, the Sing Festival, you know, they provide this like incredible vocal music programming from around the world in Toronto. And I had been part of the vocal music scene here for quite a long time. I guess as long as the festival's been around. And so I was really excited when they came to me and said, we would love to have you make a film. You know, we'd like to make 3 shorts. And the only criteria is that it should focus on or it should feature a vocal music score. So for me, that kind of got the idea cooking about like creating a really rich visual world in which the music could help sort of carry the emotion. So I ended up doing a non-dialogue film, and I wanted to focus on an older woman protagonist. I feel like we we don't see enough of them. And, and I think there's some great performers out there. And so, in the story, we have this elderly woman who's, she's just found out that she's being evicted. And so it's her way, the story follows the way that she sort of scrambles to, gather the pieces of her broken life and still like find a piece of dignity for herself and what's happening. For me, I've always had this kind of attachment to using ritual and creativity as a way to work through like hard periods in your life. And I just wanted to do something super imaginative and magical. So I won't give away what happens in the film, but
so it's also about, in watching your film, you're thinking about the things that you leave behind, the things you take with you. Mm-hmm. And a thing like a photograph.
That's right.
That captures something. Could be an item that brings back memories and also ties you in with your past life in such a way.
Yes, exactly. There's that question of what she goes around the apartment to save and what that signifies. And who knows who might find it later down the road, right? She leaves, well, I don't want not to give too much away, but when you leave a couple things behind, that tells a story too. Yeah.
So what's on the horizon for you? What are you working on now?
Oh, I'm actually working on my first feature film script. So that's a beast, as anyone knows, when you're, when you're writing something of that magnitude. But it'd be another queer magical realism piece that takes me back, to Japan and working on the Canadian-Japanese relationships there. And then cooking up some other short films in the meantime too, still continuing in that fantasy vein. So living there was a really incredible and life-changing experience for me. Like I said, it was a 2011, and I've studied Japanese in years. And so for me, the biggest takeaway is just was learning to reframe my perspective on things, right, and to open up to completely different ways of doing things. I think that really helps as an artist. I think that's sort of our job, is to like constantly be discovering new ways of approaching things. And then there are a lot of specific cultural things I came away with that I love, like that attunement to the different seasons, for example, and like celebrating different times of year, things like that just are really grounding. So, it's just been an ongoing relationship. I go back almost every year to work on various film projects and to collaborate with people. So I hope to always continue doing that.
Caileah, thank you very much. And we'll catch you on March 30th at the Burlington Performing Arts Center. Jessica Bellamy's in the house.
We continue to spotlight the winners of the Sirius XM Black Canadian Music Awards. Today, we are celebrating Toronto-based powerhouse pianist and multi-instrumentalist Desarae Dee. Desarae has made significant waves in the Canadian music industry as an instrumental fusion artist since 2014. Known as Toronto's Queen of Vibes, her passionate and meaningful sound combines a unique mixture of faith, soul, vulnerability, and divine balance. Desarae has an extensive resume that includes 21 singles and 4 project releases over the last 8 years. Regional touring, a feature on the cover of Spotify's Fresh Finds Jazz playlist with her single Care For You, a feature on NPR Music's Jazz Night on the List, plus Apple Music playlist with her single Meditation, national and international media coverage, and radio plays, and a recent Top 100 finish in the 2022 CBC Music Searchlight competition. She continues to blaze the trail in the name of instrumental music, while continuing to break barriers and forge a path for current and future Black women musicians in Canada. Desarae shares the importance of representation, mentorship, and making an impact on the lives of her students. Let's see what's up.
Self-care, self-love, self-reflection. Caring for yourself is important. Loving yourself is key. Reflecting on yourself helps you grow. Looking beyond the person you see and becoming better than them. Self.
Oh man, let me tell you something. I literally applied for the award, didn't really think about it much. And then one Saturday I was teaching a student and I got a phone call from somebody and I didn't recognize the phone number. And obviously I couldn't answer because I was teaching. So it wasn't until I checked my email and I saw the email, and I'm very skeptical with emails. So at first I didn't believe the email, but then I read it through again and I was like, is he talking about me? That's me? I won? So it was surreal, but also it was an amazing feeling. It felt like such a huge accomplishment for me, especially as somebody who's doing something totally different from everybody else, something that hasn't really been done in Canada before. So it just further validates everything that I've done and all the hard work that I've put in over the last 8.5 years. Pandemic really put things into perspective for me. And I was at a stage in my life where, it was time for me to, address some of the things in my life that I had been struggling with and things that I needed to finally face that I hadn't been, too focused on. I'm a workaholic. So sometimes I allow my work to get in the way of, my own healing. And I use it sometimes as a defense mechanism. And I think I just got to a point where I was like, no, I need to be better for myself. I want to be better for my future. I just felt like it was time and it was necessary. And so the idea of that project honestly didn't even come until the beginning of 2022. I was kind of sitting in my room and just reminiscing on my life and just all the things that I've accomplished, all of the obstacles and the setbacks that I've went through. And I wanted 2022 to truly be about me and me finally focusing on myself. And the word self just so happened to come into mind. And I had a few songs that I had written during the pandemic that I felt were very fitting just based on the ambiance and the vibe of them. And then I decided to add an intro and an outro track. So the intro track that you hear is me just finally saying like self-love, self-reflection, self-care. Like those are the things that I'm focusing on. And these are the things that are going to help me become a better woman and a better person in this world, but also using that as an opportunity to encourage other Black women and Black people in general to take those steps into becoming better for themselves. If that means you need to finally heal from those traumas that you've gone through, or you just want to seek, help, right? Or even just going to a therapist and really just letting all your emotions out and really facing those things that you've been, putting off for so long. So I teach all ages for piano, but I'm also an educator in the Toronto District School Board. So I teach elementary school. It was nice to have that experience prior to even pursuing education because I had been teaching since I was in high school and having that one-on-one interaction with different students. And I think my main thing was, number one, I wanted to provide representation. When I was growing up taking piano lessons, there was nobody that looked like me growing up in the 90s taking piano lessons. So it was nice to see somebody who was Black and who was a woman who loved music just as much as I did. But also she made me see music in a whole different light. Not only that, she took the time to build a relationship with me. And I feel like that's so important as a teacher, not only to teach your students, the fundamentals of piano and music, but also building that relationship and connecting with them, because that makes the learning experience so much better. So in my own personal studio, I strive to do that with my students and even the students that I come in contact with at the different schools that I have to teach at, and really building that relationship, getting to know them so that, the next time I'm there, they know, oh, there's my teacher. I remember her. I like her. She took the time to get to know who I was. And I think that's so important. So I actually have a brand new single called Chilly Timing coming out on March the 30th. So I'm really excited about that song. It's been 2.5 years in the making, and I'm finally putting it out. It's about time. And of course, my fans for the last, oh Lord, maybe 7.5 years have been wondering, where's the debut album? We need a debut album. So I don't know what's going to happen this year. We'll see. But in the meantime, they can get excited for the new single that's coming out. So you can support my work by streaming all of my music on all digital platforms. So whatever platform is your flavor, you can just type in Desarae Dee and find me there. And if you want to support my music, you can go to my Bandcamp page at Bandcamp, DesaraeDeemusic.bandcamp.com, and you can purchase my music there. And you can also contact me on social media. I'm available on mostly Instagram and TikTok at Desarae Dee Music.
The music featured on today's segment are from Desarae Dee's latest EP, Self. You heard Self, Reminder, Meditation, Care for You, and Self-Reflection. All can be purchased at DesaraeDeemusic.bandcamp.com. Be sure to follow Desarae on Instagram at Desarae Dee Music to stay tuned for the release of her next single, Chilly Timing, dropping on March 31st. Next week, I'll introduce you to Afro R&B, soul singer-songwriter, and producer, Nonzo Amadi.
And in the house, Jesse King, welcome in.
Great to be back. And this is our first time in a few weeks where we're right here in the same room.
Right. It's good. I don't like doing interviews or talk over the phone and record them. And this had become the norm, I guess, for about 3 years.
Well, the first couple of times, and I agree with you, is we just did it by phone. And then last week we used the video, which helped because at least you have the facial,
facial tics.
Tics and animation to go with the...
My favorite tics.
Yeah. So, but it's great to be in the studio.
First question of the day.
I like them.
What group or artist has sold the most tickets to live events throughout history?
It's either the Eagles or Kiss.
Wrong.
I'm going to say Beyonce.
Rolling Stones.
Rolling Stone. Well, that's, to be fair, it's been 80 years?
Since 1962, they have sold 38 million tickets to live events.
Incredible.
And
think about, if you go back 40 years, a group like the Stones headlining their stadium tours. Steelers Wheels, I think, was the big one right after Tattoo You. Mm-hmm. And they might walk away after touring and go, well, we made $3 or $5 million. That's not what it is anymore today. You walk away, you've made $200-300 million. Like, it's just
on the entire tour.
Yeah, because ticket prices, back then were, like $5, $10. Now they're, upwards of thousands
of dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
Kiss's final tour, which nobody believes.
Yeah, I know they're going to pull the Who.
Yeah, they're going to pull the Who, but I heard Gene Simmons talking about it and saying, you will not believe, and Paul Stanley talking about the show that people will get. Because that's basically what KISS is.
Yeah, they're theater.
It's theater. They say they have the pyrotechnics and everything that goes with the show, and that their audience will go crazy. And I think they finish up at in New York City or something in
Madison
December.
Square Garden. That's right.
Yeah, in December next year. So if you're making millions off it, it costs you millions to mount the show.
Absolutely.
To do something like that and carry that on the road.
But the thing is, they'll make money because they're masters at marketing and merchandise. Because especially if this is the final tour, everybody's going to buy every trinket that they're going to have out there. They're going to live stream stuff. They're going to have a Netflix special or something like that. They will capitalize on the momentum of this being the final farewell.
Right.
And you got to imagine, what the rig setup. They probably have like 10 trucks that go ahead, or 2 sets. Like a lot of them, like U2 had 2 sets for their big stadium tour with the Spider. They have to have 2 sets probably, these things setting up.
You can't go out with a banjo on your knee.
Not with Steve Martin. He's got it down pat.
So what have you got there, Jay?
All right, so let's talk about this. The weekend is Oscars weekend, and you got to love Chris Rock. He's coming out to talk about the Will Smith slap.
He's going to do that on Oscars?
No, even better. A live streaming Netflix special.
Oh, I love this.
So he's waited.
Gotta be funny.
He spent the whole year basically not saying anything and letting just the rest of the world speculate, talk, and everything that's, the fallout for Will. Hasn't said anything. His ticket sales have done great. He's done very well for his tour. And in a year into this now, it's like the irony. Well, now I'm going to talk about it on the day it actually happened. So that's Saturday night, Netflix. It's a live stream.
Okay.
Should be interesting. And I feel for Will, because this is never going to, every year that the Oscars happen, this reference will come up.
Yeah, you can't live this down.
It's a tough one.
No,
and Will's not that guy. This is one of those moments, I think, where it just happened. But he's not generally that guy. He's never been perceived as that guy.
But it's also the fact that when you're in a situation like Will Smith is, it's a situation of power, and then you're dethroned, and you cannot believe this happens to you. Oh, yeah. You can't. It happens.
And the irony, of course, was that he won for
Best
his movie,
Actor,
King Richard,
and
just
nothing
took the wind right out of that sail.
Yeah.
And the movie that came out, Emancipation, I think it was in December. You never heard a word about it again.
No.
So unfortunately for
tough.
everybody involved. All right, so here's always fun. A site called Dig. I just scrolled and said the top best biographies to read, music biographies. Well, I'm a big
according to Dig.
According to Dig. So their top 5, starting with 5, was Ozzy Osbourne. Number 4, Nick Mason. 3 was Bruce Springsteen. 2, Elton John, and 1, Anthony Kiedis from Chili Peppers. Now, I read the Ozzy, I read the Elton. I had to put down the Elton, couldn't read it.
No, me either.
Anthony Kiedis, I read it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Now, what they're missing here now, here's my picks, and then we'll go to your picks. Keith Richards.
Top 5.
Yeah. Start to finish, engaging.
It's a great book.
It reads like he's talking.
Yeah.
Johnny Marr from the Smiths, same kind of way of describing things in his events of life. Nile Rodgers, great book. Get a little bit of history. Peter Hooks, who's from Joy Division, the bass player, he's very open. It's the same kind of thing. You know what it is? It's when they bring their real words and way they would say something.
They put you in the places.
Yeah, and you're not. They're not sanitized.
Right.
They're dirty. And then my 5th one was Miles Davis. Miles. That's an older one.
Robbie Robertson's testimony was fantastic.
Yes, I haven't read that one.
Oh, it's fantastic, Jesse. The first 100 pages is just on Toronto.
Okay.
Just on playing the bars here, Dominic Troiano coming in and watching him play, or him going to see him. All these kind of this interaction with the community and the clubs, Ronnie Hawkins and the Lecoq Door and all that stuff. And then it evolves into the band. It's a fantastic book. Still, for me, number 1 is Bob Dylan's Chronicles.
That's the one.
I say that because he's a writer, and he has so much to say in this book about his experiences recording with
Daniel Lanois.
Yeah, Daniel Lanois. And Dylan would disappear, and nobody knew where he was.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't get settled in these sessions. He wasn't happy with it, right?
Okay.
So he'd just go off on a motorcycle, and he'd show up at some bar somewhere.
Okay, yeah.
And people are going, is that who it is?
Who do I think that is?
But it is so well written.
Well, the movie with Robbie Robertson, the documentary, that's the 2-part.
Our Brothers, or whatever it's called.
It's on HBO, though, like every day. Between that Triumph, I've seen them a million times now, and they're both excellent. What was the other thing I was going to talk about? Oh, this was, you were telling me about Rick Beato, who's on YouTube.
Yes, yeah.
He's a fantastic musician, educator, studio mixer, everything. But he interviewed Keith Jarrett, and you found that really interesting because Keith's one of those rare.
That's the interview.
Is he genius? You call him genius?
When you think of jazz piano, the lineage, all right, in my time, it was Oscar Peterson, Bill Evans, right? Then it moved into this other arena with Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock, and Keith Jarrett.
Right.
All right. Each one of them were different, but they were monsters as far as music, their influence on music. Keith Jarrett, is what Rick Beato does in this is he covers so many different stages of his development in his playing, and it's always amazing, all the things he tried. But a difficult guy to pin down, so he would never do interviews for the longest time. But I think about 15 years ago, he developed like a carpal tunnel syndrome, but something like that, and then a disorder where the muscles in his body, he couldn't function, right? And to come out of that, he did the Melody at Night. I think it was called, the album was solo piano. They brought a grand piano into his home, and they softened the keys so he could play. It's a fantastic album. I didn't know that he had 2 strokes, one in 2017 and 18, that have left his left side incapacitated.
Wow.
So really can't play but just his right hand. So it's like this reflection back on his career. And Rick plays songs, he plays albums, and he talks to music. And he does it in such a sensitive manner that you see Keith Jarrett get lost in those moments. That's him. And then you think to yourself, boy, you got to take care of yourself. You got to figure out how to do this, because there is a time, even for the greatest, when the tools are not there, or the art that you were making, you're not able to do it anymore.
Well, I think because you told me about this, right? And that's why I thought we could talk about is that. But this had, an impact on you. Like you walked away going, time, you don't know when something's going to happen. It doesn't matter what age. And my sense was that you it was an impetus to give you more energy to keep going. And not that you're not going to, but to maybe go harder, which I'm a little worried about because, you don't stop as it is.
No, it's not really harder. It's just that I think what you want to do is find out how much you have in you, right? We find out that people at a certain age, many who are in the workforce, let's say for 50 years, and then they retire, the first thing they do is pick up a guitar or play a piano, or they go out and they start painting, or they get into some craft and they find out how incredibly well they do things. And they find out, and then they go, well, I've denied myself this section of my life the opportunity to learn the skills for this, even though I'm doing it now, but maybe I should have had that as part of my life. And then you get another segment to sit on the front porch and just look at a distance and wait for death. That's a no-no.
No, I agree. Yeah, I did an interesting experiment. I'm still doing it where, it's kind of been in the back of my mind. I think we all have things like you wanted to put out books, so you kind of do these things. And one of them I had was, can I produce a musical idea every day? So the concept was simple. Just create an 8-bar song, just something simple, and post it up. So it kind of led to this path within, 4 weeks. I decided, I was adding full videos. I was doing 30 seconds, then it went to 1 minute, and then it was full songs with full videos. Yeah. And I was doing it every day, and I was like, I can't sustain doing the video part. The music part I can do, but the video part was just, what's the theme to go with the song? Where do I find the visual? So I kind of had to par that back, but I'm still doing the song a day. But what it's done, it's really helped me break some barriers in the sense of mental blocks. Like, it'd be something simple like, I got to turn on my mixing board and plug in some gear. It's second nature. So everything is faster. I'm quicker now. I'm much more involved with it. The mixing, everything kind of gets exponentially better because you are spending time every day on your craft.
You're investing in it.
And what this concept led to was just something very simple that, in the last month, videos I post up have had 650,000 views. I've got 3,000 new followers on this. I've got more sales. So it's grown, but it's like a nice little world that I can kind of play in now. Like I can do these things and put them out.
Ted Goya, who's on Substack, right? He was writing about this yesterday for writers not being paid. He wrote a fantastic article on Substack because Substack,
I've heard of it, yeah.
You can go there and become an individual writer, and then you charge people to be part of your subscription service. Right. Well, he went from 10,000 to 60,000 subscribers at $50 a month.
Amazing.
He never made that. Yeah. As a writer of substance himself, right? And so far, there's like 2 million people involved now in Substack, using it, from Margaret Atwood to everybody,
Fantastic.
who converse with their audience, and then they get paid for writing.
And I love this. I mean, this is the opportunity that you can do when you couple it with, I've seen this, I learned a lot really from a lot of the other people who've been doing this for years, where it's the dedication and commitment to doing whatever it is, if it's daily or weekly, just keep going.
Just
keep
do.
going.
Just do.
And eventually something will happen, or you finally go, okay, this doesn't work, but then you have to pivot and go, okay, let me try this. Because I started doing all manner of genres, and I saw the ones that really clicked. And I'm like, I am totally okay, because off the sites, I can do whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I see that this is what people are really enjoying, and I enjoy it, so I can do this. So it's been really an interesting experiment.
It's a learning thing, and if you have issues about learning something, just go to YouTube and ask the question. I just wear YouTube
It's so good,
out.
eh? Yeah. It's so great.
Let me make these points here. On International Women's Day, this is March 8th, the inaugural Women in Music Canada Honors will take place at Toronto's Opera House, drawing from a long list of 45 names. This is going to be great. The categories are Artist of the Year, presented by Amazon Music, Distinguished Leader, presented by TuneCore, Entrepreneur of the Year, presented by Bandzoogle. This is going to be good. The second part of it is the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame has selected Women in Music Canada Honors event to induct Celtic harpist and singer Lorena McKenna, whose catalog has sold over 14 million copies worldwide. So this is going to be a great event.
When I was at Fanshawe for music industry arts class back in 91, one of the first kind of stories that they gave us about artists was Lorena McKenna.
Yeah.
And her story that in St. Lawrence Market, she started off busking, made enough to put up a cassette, sold enough cassettes that she could put on her own show, and then it kind of led to where she
deal with Warner's distribution.
But that was the key, though, just distribution. She was like, I am not giving up. And I always remember she said, it's about 15% music and 85% work.
And that's what she did.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jay.
Great to be here.
Yeah. It's Gloria Martin on Entertainment. It's Gloria Martin on Entertainment. Welcome in.
Well, hello, Bill.
Good to hear from you again, Miss Sunshine. Always.
Yes. The sunny South. Here we are. And you know what? I'm stoked because guess what? I got tickets for spring training for next week. Going to see the Jays and the Rays at the Tropicana Field. So really stoked about that.
I love spring training.
So much fun.
Now, have you been before?
I have never been before.
It's fantastic. You'll never be closer to the players and the action.
Exactly.
This is how these stadiums are built. So
exactly.
It's fantastic.
And they always have so much fun because there's not as much pressure.
No, and you can call Vladdy over, right? Or Boba this is Gloria over here. Let's get an interview.
Yeah, that'll be me running down the field. Hello.
With your mic, your 680 mic, 680 news. So what else is going on in what TV and film and what else?
Did some good viewing. There's a new show out on Prime called The Consultant. I think it's a 6 or 8 part series with Christoph Waltz. He is such a good bad guy. No one can smile just like the killer smile. He's got it down. He's just sends chills down your spine even when he's smiling at you. So he plays a devil-like consultant who wreaks havoc on a video game development company that he's been hired to improve. And it's part sci-fi, part horror, and part very real if you've ever worked for a company and they've called in a consultant. I had that experience in radio where we had consultants come in and torture. It's just torture. When I was working with Jesse and Jean, they called in 2 consultants, and Jesse and Jean were bad boys anyway. So we're sitting there. We can't stop snickering at everything they're saying because it's just so dumb. And then when they came to the part to criticize how Jesse and Jean could improve, they said, well, Jean should drop his voice an octave so he sounds different from Jesse. Well, we had it. We were laughing so hard. We were crying. We got kicked out of the meeting. We got dressed down by the boss. It was just, consultants can just make you crazy. So it's very interesting little skewering of consultants on that level. So these 2 young game developers try to figure out how to stop this guy who's destroying the company. One of them is Brittany O'Grady, who was one of the young teen girls in White Lotus. In the Hawaii edition, she was the friend who had the affair with the Hawaiian boy.
Okay.
Waltz, as usual, he's just the consummate bad guy with a smile. It's a lot of fun. It's not too long, and it's very unpredictable. But I recommend it. I think it's 8 parts.
You have to hunt down new shows, you know, and this is on Prime, right? Not Paramount, but Prime.
That's Prime. Yeah,
okay.
That one is Prime. Yeah, for sure. The other one we've been watching is called CB Strike, and it's a British series. I believe it's on Acorn. Tom Burke plays a war vet turned private eye, and it takes place in London. And his unlikely assistant is played by Holiday Granger, who you'd know her from a million host of period films, from Jane Eyre to Anna Karenina to Great Expectations. And she played Lucretia Borgia in The Borgias with Jeremy Irons. So she's fabulous. She plays his assistant, who morphs from a sort of paper pusher into a full tilt partner in his crime solving. And they dig into some horrible crimes that the police can't seem to solve. And Tom Burke's character kind of gives Peter Falk's Columbo a run for his money. Is in reimagining the rumpled raincoat. He's always wearing this big rumpled coat.
That.
It's like, yeah, right. And he's a bit of a drinker, and he doesn't care anything about his appearance. And he's got some issues. You know, he's got some emotional issues. We like that. Always makes a person interesting. But he's totally likable. And together they make a good pair. And I have a little clip, I think, from CB Strike to give you kind of a flavor of the series.
Well, let's have a listen now.
My name is Cormoran Strike. Wondered if we could have a quick chat. Just want to ask a few questions.
I'm Robin Ellicott. I've always dreamt about a career like this.
Private detective. It's a bit Roger Rabbit.
I like the work I'm doing now.
I've read about you, Mr. Strike. Are you attracted to troubled women? Or that they become troubled because of you? Perhaps I should ask you.
Justice has not been done.
I know you're scared, but we're on your side. Where's your engagement ring?
Put 2 and 2 together, you're the detective.
So now this is playing where?
That one is on Acorn, I believe.
Acorn. Where's Acorn at?
Acorn is all the British programming.
Oh, the British programming. What is it, BritBox and Acorn? And
I think it's part of BritBox.
Okay, gotcha.
But don't quote me on that. You know, I just give the remote to Jean and say, yeah, find this. Right?
Just look for this.
Now, there's a couple of things I need to watch that I wanted to mention. The Canadian Screen Awards are coming up April 16th. They're kind of like that. Used to be the Geminis and the Genies. Now they're combined into one, Canadian Screen Awards. The first season of CBC's The Porter leads both the TV and overall nominations with 19, including Best Drama Series. And The Porter is inspired by real events set in the 1920s, and it follows a group of people who hustle, cross borders, and fight for liberation on and off the railways across North America. I've been wanting to see it. Now I've really got to see it because it got so many nominations, and you can see it on CBC Gem, which is great. And on the film side, Clement Virgo's brother tops the nominations with 14, and Viking got 13. David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future has 11 nominations.
Okay.
So there you go. Been a lot of award shows that we've had the BAFTA awards. Wanted to mention, give a special mention actually to the documentary that won Best Doc by Canadian director Daniel Rohr, who won for Navalny. He tracked Navalny from the time he was poisoned to the time he got thrown in prison. Really stunning documentary. I've only seen clips, but it really looks fabulous. And I interviewed Daniel when he directed Once We're Brothers, the Robbie Robertson and the band story that opened TIFF in 2019. And he was such a great guy, so interested in what he was doing, very young, very smart guy. So I'm really pleased to see that he's doing so well. It's actually an American film because it's produced by HBO Max and CNN. And it's also up for an Oscar for Best Documentary. So good on Daniel. Fabulous.
Great stuff, Gloria. That was jam-packed. So next week we talk Oscars, right?
We're going to look at some of those shows that are nominated and what's expected to win and maybe what we'd like to win instead.
We will be grieving about 1923.
Oh, the cliffhanger ending's just killing me. How long do you think we're going to have to wait for another episode?
Goodness, I couldn't believe it was over. You know, but they got the second season, so it's already written. I don't think it's filmed yet, so we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Thanks so much, Gloria. Great stuff.
Okay, Bill. Have a great week.
All right.
You're fix-it men, part-time gangsters.
We don't break the law, Ma. You know that. We just bend it. Make peace. For everybody.
I'm so familiar with what you do. Your father invented it.
I understand your influence within the prisons is unique. The answer is inside those walls, not outside.
If you want to know who's running what, anytime, where, come to me. What you see is what you get. I don't take sides.
Why did you pick up a shift?
Ma, don't start.
Your brothers are involved, I'm sure.
What aren't they involved in?
He's gonna have to keep his mouth shut, and he's gonna have to do what he's told.
The food chain here, there's a lot of wolves, and only a few rabbits. Why do they call him the mayor?
Because he runs the city.
I wonder what the real mayor thinks of that.
The real mayor knows it too.
Just do what you gotta do on that.
Everybody in this whole muff be dead if it wasn't for you.
If this is gonna work for anyone, everyone has to trust us. Anything I ever gave you, I could take away in an afternoon. Don't ever threaten me again.
Mayor of Kingstown, Aaron
Yes.
Kazmer. You were on the set working as?
I was C camera dolly grip. A, B, and C is just number 1, 2, and 3. So C being the lowest, that would be the third camera. So on that show, we basically shot 2 to 3 cameras every day. So that way we could try to utilize as much shooting time and get as much coverage in as short a period as time.
The story is about 7 prisons within a 20-mile radius.
Yeah, give or take.
Give or take. Okay, in Michigan, but it's filmed where at here? Hamilton and Kingstown?
It was filmed here in Toronto, Hamilton, Scarborough, and Kingston.
The main character, Jeremy Renner, plays this sort of, I don't know what his gig is. He negotiates with everybody.
Yeah, he's kind of like a private eye, but not really kind of, and works with the police that way. So that's how you, like as you put it so perfectly, is he kind of works with everybody, but tied to nobody, so to speak.
Now, in doing this had to be difficult to do because you're dealing with a prison system. Now, were these real prisoners or basically actors?
Those were actors.
Okay.
Like I've got if we can get together sometime in the
I
next
would
day,
lock them up if it was me.
Yeah,
I'd lock the actors up.
Oh, some of them were horrible. It was Bill. I've been doing this for about 22 years. I've worked on some of the biggest TV series in Canada's history, feature films. This show was by far, and pardon my language, but the most difficult and frustrating show I've ever been on. We shot for 5.5 months straight. The first month and a half to almost 2 months, we shot 6-day weeks, so Monday to Saturday. We averaged work day by the time we got on and started our clock, and by the time we were actually walking to our cars to leave for the end of the day, we averaged a 16-hour work day.
Wow.
We had many days where we were shooting 18 hours straight for 5-6 days. We call the first month and a half we work Saturdays, so we still call them Fraturdays, which means you're starting at like 6 p.m. on the Friday night, and by the time you wrap and you're leaving location, it's 7 to 10 o'clock in the morning on the Saturday. We start work at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning on the Monday. So we have little turnaround and sleep time. This. It's brutal.
And this is like Sons of Anarchy. It's got the same sort of repressive, depressing vibe to it, and level of danger.
Yes, very much so, because Jeremy's character, as you said, kind of a master, connected to everybody, but not really with anybody. He's trying to fight the good fight, but he's also so involved in the system that there is no real positive, let's see, what's the word I'm looking for here. There's no right and wrong defined lines anymore. So he has to kind of play that game. Same with his partner. Then you've got all the prisoners and the different, like one of the big scenes near the finale of the first season, because season 2 is already out, is a huge riot scene. That riot scene, as you see, they don't imply it as much as they did in the actual script, but in terms of how the visual. But you've got all the racial aspects between the different gangs of the prison. So the blacks, the whites, the Asians, the Hispanics, blah blah blah.
The white supremacist.
Yeah, so you get all of that stuff, like the obvious ones, but then there's all the underlining stuff of like the prison riot. We used 295 extras to shoot that scene. If you've ever been in Kingston Penitentiary or seen how big that yard is, 295 people take up about 1/8 of the actual yard. So what we did is we had 35 cameras shooting that scene. We had 2 different helicopters with 3 to 4 cameras each. We had 5 or 6 drones going, plus all the cameras that are worn by actors because they're running through, and they got little chest cameras on that you won't see from all the bigger cameras, and then all along the prison wall. And that took 3 days to shoot that scene, because what we would do is we put all the extras in one little square. We would shoot at the whole scene. Then we'd slide them down a little bit. So it was like a domino, like a checkerboard. And we would just fill in the first square. Then we'd slide them down on that same run all the way down until we literally filled every square with multiple takes. Then in production, then they would take it back to the editing house and overlay them all so it looks like it's one huge prison cell. Constantly on the road, because we're on location all the time, we're dealing with all kinds of issues of locations, meaning we can't put things in the walls here. We can't do this. We're constantly having to work around physical.
His office was his office in Hamilton?
His office was in Hamilton.
Okay, yeah, because it had the look of, had to have that look of industrial America, right? One of those neighborhoods.
Yeah, you got it. And Hamilton's such a beautiful city that way that you can get away with almost anywhere USA to Canada with a smaller town feels, but then you can easily just turn the other direction in the city and be in a downtown core kind of feel. So that worked. Plus, we also had a lot more legal rights and cheaper rights to buy out streets for one of the big scenes where you see the guys running through, cars flying everywhere. Well, we shut down one of the most major streets in Hamilton for almost an entire day. Since I know you're a good visual person, love movies, you'll probably start seeing this. A lot of the car scenes where you'll see the car driving and the guys are in chatting away, and you see the shot from outside the car, from either like a side window or, from in front of the car looking back at it. That's actually a real car on the road, actor driving, camera truck behind, in front of the car with cameras mounted to it. Other times we were in a giant green screen room, and we would literally just put the cameras where we needed them, shoot it, light them the way we want, shoot it, and then in post-production, they overlay all the background. If you look really carefully when you see the camera angle is from inside the car, if you look really carefully around the window edges of the physical car, you can start to see little bits of movement that you'll kind of going, that's not normal driving.
One last question. Where's the cabin?
The cabin is about an hour and a half north of Toronto. It's a tiny little historical cabin. It's been there for about 95 years, if I'm not mistaken.
All right.
And it took us 3 days just to prep for 1 day's worth of shooting for that place. And that's just the grips and the electrics going in and hanging. Like we had what's called a balloon light. So it looks like a hot air balloon.
Yeah.
And it's actually the whole inside of the thing lights up. But the balloon can be anywhere between 5 to 8 feet in length and 6 feet in diameter, all the way to 40 feet in length and about 20 feet in diameter.
The lighting looks like candlelight. It looks like a cabin light. It looks natural.
Yeah, it does. And that took us, that was about the electrics. It took them about a day of lighting just to set the interior up.
Aaron, I want to thank you so much for this. I'll be back at you at other times because I have more questions, and I love this behind the scenes stuff. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's time to say goodbye, Jessica.
Until next week, everyone, enjoy.
A big thank you for all who tuned in to Bill King Show. We'll catch you on the other side.